probably the one thing that I know for certain that I've learned over I'll have 6 years sober this year, is that the simplest change on your fork can make the most profound change of your life.
Isn't that crazy?
Like, that's it, People think it's too minimal a thing.
No.
But those little things are some of the most profound things that you do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Huge connection between the foods we put on our plate and self-love. They go hand in hand, because the foods that you choose to put into your body are a statement of the amount of self-love you're willing to give yourself for that day, right? People are not so much looking for the meaning of life as much as they are the experience of being alive. And that's what you give it back to me.
Hey guys, Erin and Dusty here with EatMoveRest, and today we've got something a little bit special in store for you guys. As you can see, the length is a little bit longer, but...
Yeah, and it's actually a lot of it special. This was like probably one of the more meaningful videos we've ever made. It's an interview with the infamous Adam Sud. He's been on countless number of podcasts.
Including one of our very own favorites, the Rich Roll podcast.
Right, which Rich Roll's killing it now. I'm sure most of you have heard of Rich Roll. If you haven't, you need to check him out. Adam was on his podcast a couple of years ago. He has an amazing story. You guys will hear more about it straight from him in the interview coming up. Basically, he was a 320-pound drug addict, food addict. He had basically given up on life. Now he's literally half the size. He's twice the person. He's a health coach. He's a runner, and he's a huge inspiration.
Yeah, so you can think of this kind of as a podcast, I guess, with video included.
Right.
So if you want to listen to it while you get ready in the mornings, something like that, space it out, break it up, whatever suits you, but you really will want to listen till the very end, because he's got a lot of valuable insight into addiction and recovery, as well as plant-based lifestyle, how to make it stick, and really how to just, dig deep and do the internal inside work and get to know who you are and figure out how you can, share your passion with the rest of the world.
We've had a few conversations with him, and every new conversation he brings something new to the table. I'm like, dude, we need to do this every time we talk because he's just full of inspiring, just thought-provoking. I mean, he brings the full package, and like Erin said, if you're not into watching the whole video, we don't blame you. It's an hour long, but it's so good and you'll want to listen to it. So just set it down and listen to the audio if that's all you want to do. It'd be totally fine with us, but we had to put this out there. You guys will not be disappointed. So.
And if you guys are into these kind of interviews, this is kind of part of our Kitchen Confidential series. We're trying to resurrect and bring in some community aspect to it. But if you guys are into these interviews, long form, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you're not already part of the EatMoveRest fam. It really helps us out a whole lot. Leave us some love in the comments below. Ask questions for us. Ask questions for Adam. All of that, we'll make sure we get it all sorted out. And for sure, share with family and friends. There's a whole lot of people that could really benefit from listening to this conversation.
Like Erin said, we'll have links below. You can find Adam. You can find his brother, who's had a similar journey. Super inspiring people. Awesome content. Look at the stuff below. We'll have that all there for you. And you know the drill. Eat, move, rest, your best. And we'll be in touch. Let us know what you guys think.
So without further ado, here is our conversation with Adam Sud.
We're here with our good friend now, Adam Sud. Sud, right?
It's Sud, yeah.
Rich Roll pronounced it Sud, and I was like, oh, wait a second. So number one, we're so excited when you reached out and we connected online because we've been big time fans of Rich Roll. You've been on a number of podcasts. Blogs, you're all over the internet. You're before and after
hanging
pictures.
Out with all of our Instagram friends that we haven't met in person yet.
I know. We're like stuck here in the middle of the country and like watching the rest of you like big city guys play, and we need to get in on some of the fun action because you're actually hanging out with like our plant-based idols right now, and you're one of them.
You gotta come out to Santa Monica sometime. I mean, that's really when I get to hang out with my close friends like Kira and Robbie and Satari and Mel and Autumn and everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
The plant-based all-star squad.
Yeah.
So I guess for anybody who's watching who may not be familiar with you or your story, we kind of want to start there and just kind of dive right into it.
You are literally half the size that you were, but I think you're twice the person, right? You're a former addict. You're a type 2 diabetic, survivor. I mean, you had basically given up on life.
Yeah.
And now you're here. Like I said, you're fit and you're ready to like tackle life and inspire people. You've inspired us. So tell us, man, what's your story?
So, I like to start at the beginning. I'm a 7th generation Texas Jew.
Yeah.
So I grew up eating, burgers and barbecue and bagels and blintzes. I guess you could call it like the standard American diet, wearing cowboy boots with some chutzpah.
Yeah.
And look, it was the diet of my culture. It was what my parents ate. It was what their parents ate. It's what their parents ate. So you don't question it, especially when you're a kid. You just eat what you're given and you go with it.
Right.
And I had a lot of fun as a kid. I played sports. I had a lot of friends. I used to ride my bike with all my friends to school and back. It was very much like a TV style childhood.
Yep.
But growing up, a few things really sort of impacted me, and that was one of which was my relationship with my father when it came to food and self-image. So when my dad was 25 years old, his father passed away from colon cancer.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, from what I understand, the time in which his father, who I call Grandpa Sud, I never got to meet him, obviously. But from the time in which he was diagnosed to the time in which he passed away was relatively short.
Yeah.
And as a result of losing his father to a disease, my dad becomes very fearful when he sees somebody that he loves engaging in behavior that's dangerous to their health.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so at a very young age, I was criticized for wanting to eat, junk food, even when it was food that we had in the house.
Yeah.
So this created this really unhealthy relationship with me and food and self-image. Is my dad, does he dislike me because I'm eating the food, or because I'm eating the food, does he now think I'm a bad person?
Right.
And so at about age 10, I became a closet eater, where I would take junk food from the kitchen and I would run into my bedroom and turn off the lights, and I would sit in the dark in the corner and I'd eat the food, literally in the dark, because I was afraid of being seen.
Yeah.
I was afraid that if my parents saw me doing this,
Yep.
that I would be a bad person.
Yeah.
Right.
And that they wouldn't love me and they wouldn't accept me. And that's something I was very afraid of. And at the same time, I was diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was born in the 80s, and this was, this would have been the early 90s when the diagnoses took place, when all the kids were being put on Ritalin.
Yeah.
Right.
But what the doctor was essentially saying to me was, there's something about you that doesn't work.
Yep.
Something about you that the rest of the world does not agree with and won't tolerate.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But just take this pill,
Yeah.
and everybody will think you're fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I got a message from an authority figure who my parents took me to,
Yeah.
saying that in order to be okay with everybody, I had to look at a substance outside of myself to fix what others said was wrong with me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I had self-image issues ever since then. And in high school, Ritalin for me became Adderall.
Yeah.
And I think most people are familiar with Adderall, have either heard of it or have taken it themselves.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I can remember the first time that I used Adderall as a recreational drug. I was either a sophomore or a freshman in high school.
Yep.
And I was late to start puberty, so I was a little heavy in high school as a sophomore and freshman.
Yep.
And a friend of mine said, "Hey, you have Adderall, don't you?" "Yeah, I have Adderall. We're going to this party tonight. You should bring some, because if you take more of it, you can stay up all night. You have loads of energy. It's tons of fun." And I was like, "All right, great. Let's do it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get to the party, and the very first time I used Adderall as a recreational drug, I was hooked.
Yep.
Wow.
Because it's amphetamine. That's what this stuff is.
Yeah.
So it takes your appetite away. It takes your hunger drive away. So I discovered I was able to lose the weight that I thought I needed to lose to have people like me without even trying.
Yeah.
I was a procrastinator, and still kind of am.
Right.
And Adderall made me very hyper-focused.
Yeah.
I was able to accomplish tasks without effort. And I thought if I could be that, then maybe my mom and dad would also, have more reason to be proud of me.
So it made you a better, happier version of yourself.
That's what I thought, yeah. And it also, like I said, it gives you tons of energy. So I was the life of the party. Everybody's conversation to me was incredibly interesting. I could stay up for days at a time, and I liked that. It was like a magic pill for me, and it worked. In high school, it worked for me. I mean, I had a lot of fun. I lost, it allowed me to control my weight. I didn't have an issue with food anymore because food was no longer an issue as long as I had this drug.
Right.
I could, wait until the very last minute and then stay up all night long and get my work done. So being a procrastinator and not taking my work seriously wasn't a problem as long as at the very last minute I popped some pills and took care of it.
Yeah.
And I got a scholarship to the school that I wanted to go to. But in college, things really started to take a turn because the drug had started to no longer work. I needed more and more and more of it. Like with any substance, you continually take it, you'll build up a tolerance.
Sure.
Yeah.
To the point to where I was so focused on needing more and more drugs that my classes and my friends and my, after school activities just started to no longer matter to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that mattered was, where are my drugs? How am I going to get them? Where, what do I have to do to get more drugs?
Right.
What do I have to do to get more drugs?
Right.
And as a sophomore in college, I dropped out of school and moved back to Austin. And I told my parents that it was because, I wanted to take a year off and work in the industry that I was studying, which was film.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I did. I had a job. I had a job working at a production studio, or production company, and I got a job working on a cool movie. And but the real reason I came back was because I knew all the friends that I could buy Adderall from, and I knew which doctors I could scam.
Yeah.
So when I dropped out of school, I came home and quickly became a criminal drug addict.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was doctor shopping. This is where you have multiple doctors prescribing the same medication without them knowing about each other. It's a felony.
Yeah.
I was forging and altering prescriptions. I was dealing drugs. I was stealing from people. I mean, it was bad, and I avoided my friends.
Yeah.
I was in constant fights with my parents. The only time I ever really talked to them was to borrow money. Any other time, there was no conversation. It was just confrontation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of that's really ringing a bell and resonating with me and my situation with my brother, which we haven't really addressed too much on our channel, but this whole addiction and recovery story of yours is so fascinating because my brother has gone through a similar process.
Yeah.
First, initially becoming addicted to prescription drugs that he was in high school, prescription painkillers in particular, and same kind of thing. Every single conversation was a confrontation with my parents.
That's right.
And everything was all about borrowing money, and eventually that turned into trying to borrow from me and I'm an enabler. But anyways,
I think people don't understand too, like the severity of these like prescription medications.
Oh yeah.
They don't think of them as drugs, but I mean, specifically talking about Adderall, I mean, like how close is Adderall like to meth? Like hasn't Adderall been compared to meth?
Absolutely. It's very much a medically pure amphetamine. I mean, if you were to get a generic bottle of Adderall, the label won't read Adderall. What it reads is amphetamine salt.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's medically pure.
Right.
Right? Yeah. And that's another reason why it's so expensive.
Yeah.
Whereas methamphetamine is basically your street cheap version of Adderall.
Yeah.
But at the same time that I was going through all this, I became incredibly isolated and incredibly depressed. And I developed a secondary addiction to fast food.
Yeah.
So what I mean is, I'll tell you like what a normal day for me of eating would be. I would get up and I would go get breakfast tacos.
Yeah.
I would get 4 potato, egg, and cheese breakfast tacos. And then for my first lunch, I would go to McDonald's and get 2 supersized double quarter pounder meals. For my first lunch. For my second lunch, I would go to a place called Whataburger.
Yeah.
Get their extra large honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich meal.
Oh wow.
For dinner, I would get an extra large pizza from Papa John's with sausage on top and a side of the chicken strips with the honey mustard dipping sauce.
Oh.
Then at 3 in the morning, I would go back to Whataburger for 3 or 4 of their breakfast on a bun sandwiches with sausage.
Oh my gosh.
During the course of that day, I would drink 15 or more sodas.
Yeah.
And as a drug addict, a normal prescription for Adderall is around 20 or 30 milligrams per day.
Yeah.
The last 5 or so years of my addiction, I was doing 450 milligrams in a 24-hour period.
Oh, wow.
And I could do that for about 6 days straight,
Yeah.
where I wouldn't eat or sleep for those 6 days.
Oh my gosh.
Towards the last day and a half of it, I would really start to develop the symptoms of a drug-induced psychosis.
Yeah.
I was such severe obsessive compulsive tics, one of which was I couldn't tolerate to feel the hair touch the back of my ear. And one night I can remember staying up all night long, doing whatever I was doing, but while doing it, brushing my hair forward and back so hard for so long that in the morning when I went and looked in the mirror, all the hair on the side of my head had been brushed off. I mean, it was bald.
Oh my gosh.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And, I started to live like a hoarder.
Yeah.
I mean, like seriously, like a hoarder. If you've ever seen the show Hoarders, it was that type of thing.
Yeah.
And it was about this time that my dad came to me. And my dad, who's been involved with Whole Foods Market for a long time, at this time Whole Foods had partnered with Rip Esselstyn and created the Engine 2 Total Health Immersion Program.
Yep.
And this was a week-long event where you could go to a resort for 7 days, and they do medical tests beforehand and after. You're there with like Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Clapper and Doug Lyle and all these incredible people, and you learn how if you were to adopt a plant-based diet, you could treat, prevent, and reverse chronic Western disease and eventually make yourself heart attack proof.
Yep.
My dad came to me and he said, Adam, I really, really want you to go. If you will go, I'll get you in. His idea was my dad's thing was if I could show him that he could take control of his health, maybe he'll feel good enough about himself to admit he has some other things that he can work on, because I could see that I would be capable of making change on my own.
Yep.
And I agreed to go only because I knew if I said yes, he would keep giving me money.
Yeah.
So was your dad plant-based at this time, or how did
No,
you
he
find
wasn't.
out about this retreat?
He wasn't plant-based, but he was very, very interested in this because this was all new to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Engine 2 diet book had come out like a year ago, and about the same time as Forks Over Knives.
Right.
This was like 2009, 2010. Forks Over Knives thing came out in 2011.
Yeah.
And I went, and look, I mean, I was a drug addict, so I had drugs with me. I was using at the immersion.
Yeah.
I was rooming by myself because, one, I didn't want to be with anybody, and I know no one would have wanted to be with me. I was always very diaphoretic, where I was sweating all the time, and I was always really red, and I smelled really toxic. Apparently, there were conversations that were being had by the Engine 2 staff because people were complaining about my appearance and my smell, and they were discussing whether or not to have me removed from the program. And luckily enough, I'll say this about Rip, is that he always sees the good in people.
Yeah.
And I know that the entire Engine 2 staff more than likely came to the decision that they would never ask the person who appears to need it the most to leave.
Right. Right. And that was clearly you.
Yeah. And Rip, he had conversations with me. He's like, hey, Adam, I want to ask if you're doing okay. You seem like you look like you're not feeling well. Is everything okay? Sort of trying to bridge the topic.
Yeah.
But I went to every single lecture and I listened to everything that was being said, and it all made sense. And on the last night, there was a speaker there named Dick Beardsley.
Yeah.
And he's one of the, great marathoners of our time. He ran in one of the most historic New York marathon races of all time against a guy named Alberto Salazar.
Yeah.
Okay.
They both finished first and second place, but they both also broke world records doing it.
Wow.
And he talked about how after his career as a runner, he suffered a series of really horrific accidents on his farm where he got caught up in machinery. And as a result of it, became addicted to painkillers.
Yeah.
I listened to him talk about himself as an addict, and I said, man, if there's ever going to be anybody that's in my life at this moment that I could admit for the first time I'm an addict and I need help, it's this guy because he's an addict. This guy's not going to judge me for it. He's going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And, I can remember afterwards wanting so desperately to have the courage to do just that. But I guess I just wasn't desperate enough.
Right.
And I wish that, my story was I went to the engine to immersion and then the next day everything was fixed. But it just, that's just not my story. And
it seems like it rarely is the story. Going back to Aaron's brother, I mean, how many times did we have to go through that with him? It's like sometimes people's their threshold for pain, it's like they can endure so much. Or
everybody's rock bottom is different.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how comfortable you can become in that pain to where you need it.
Yeah.
Because that's comfortable to you.
Yeah.
And as long as you know that it's coming up, you can get through your day with it.
Yeah.
And about a year later, I come home from shopping at a place called Casual Male XL because I had a 50-inch waist, so I couldn't shop anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I go into my bathroom and I take my shirt off. And I used to do this pretty regularly, but I'd stare at myself in the mirror and I'd start to beat myself as hard as I could and scream at myself in the mirror, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Yeah. And to the point to where my body was not only covered in rashes from not showering, because I showered once every few months and I never brushed my teeth and had all these welts from the beating and I collapsed on the floor crying. And, in college I was going through a lot of depression and I had a conversation with my twin brother and I told him, I said, look, I got to make a promise to you. If you would do the same for me, I promise that no matter how bad things will get, I will never commit suicide because I know that you could probably not go on without me. And I know I can't go on without you. Would you please make the same promise to me? And we did. We made this agreement. Yeah. But that night, I was 30 years old. I had already developed erectile dysfunction and I had been fighting suicidal thoughts for the longest time. Yeah. And that night I broke that promise and I attempted suicide by overdose. Yeah. And I can remember taking the pills and I can remember cramping up and I remember panicking and throwing up on the floor and then this black sort of fading in. And I remember this thought that I had of, I've never been so terrified in my life. Yeah. Where this is it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is the last thing you're going to see as I'm falling forward. And I regained consciousness in a puddle of vomit surrounded by empty pill bottles and in a pile of fast food garbage. Right. And I had this very surreal moment where I finally realized that unless I did something drastic, my brother, who I'm closest with more so than anyone in my life. And that is not to say that I'm not close with my sister or my mom or my dad. I love them to the ends of the earth, but an identical twin brother is a very special relationship. He was going to have to spend the rest of his life, along with my parents and my sister. They were going to have to ask themselves over and over again, why did I need to eat and drug myself to death? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What could they or should they have done? Right. And the thing is that unless you're an addict, you don't know that unless you want it for yourself, there's nothing anybody can say. Yeah. Uh-huh. And I picked up the phone.
That sucks being a family, frankly, on the outside. It's like, do we not matter? And your family's probably thinking that too. They're like you said, what could we have done? Or what? It's heartbreaking.
And you feel like everybody, my parents, me, Dusty, everyone thinks they can be that one person to just shake some sense into them. But
being an addict, I'll tell you what, it's really difficult to explain because I loved my parents. I love them. I love them then. I love them now equally as much. But the way that I treated them then, so for example, I would sit on my couch and I would say to myself, Adam, you're a college dropout, drug addict who's blown every cent he has. I was a month away from living on the streets. Yeah. You're never going to amount to anything. Yeah. But thankfully, when your parents die, you'll get their money. Yeah. That's the way that I thought about them. And it's odd. It's hard to explain how those thoughts can exist at the same time as thoughts of just complete and unconditional love for those people at the same time. And that's that inner chaos that exists inside of me as an addict that made me hate myself almost constant basis. And that self-hatred fueled my need for drug use, which fueled my need to continue to behave in the ways that made me hate myself even more. And it's just this like
this vicious cycle of downward.
Just cycle of self-hatred and self-abuse.
Yep.
And I called my dad and I finally asked him for help. And he and my mom came with me as I checked myself into rehab in Arizona. And when you check into rehab, you're subjected to a lot of medical tests, psychological tests. They strip search you. And at that time, I was around 320 plus pounds. Yeah. And I already hated myself. I did not want to stand naked in front of doctors and nurses and have them examine my body for like infections and, figure out what all these sores were and all this stuff. And I felt humiliated and I felt like a criminal, and it was very dehumanizing. But the reason for it is they want to know, one, do you have anything that they don't want you bringing in? And do you have any conditions that you're not aware of as a result of being an addict? And within 48 hours of being in rehab, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, erectile dysfunction, bipolar disorder, suicidal depression, anxiety disorder, sleep disorder, and attention deficit disorder. Wow. I was put on a cabinet's worth of medication. And the doctors were pretty much saying, that there's, in terms of like, for my diabetes, I remember asking him specifically, what are the odds of me? Have you ever seen anybody get off their diabetes medication? And he said to me, if you were to work really, really hard for about 2 years, you might be able to be on half of because he put me on 2,000 milligrams of metformin with oral diabetes medication. And that's the highest doses that they usually prescribe somebody before they consult the use of insulin. Wow. And he's like, you may be able to be on half in 2 years. And I was devastated. Yeah. I was devastated because of attending the Engine 2 immersion. I knew that the only reason I was hearing this from the doctor was because of every single choice I'd made to put on my plate. Yeah. I was 100% responsible. Yeah. But I called my dad at the end of that day and was really wanting to come home. Yeah. Like, I can't do this. This is I thought I just had to get sober. Now I find out I'm sicker than I ever imagined. Yeah. And he said, Adam, didn't you learn at the Engine 2 immersion that all of this is reversible? Right. And you know what to do. You know how to do it. So if there's something about your life that you don't like and you can change it, then it's not really a problem. It's something that needs to be changed. A problem is something you can't do anything about. And he helped me realize that since I was the problem, since I was the cause, I get to be the solution.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, what a godsend too that your dad had all this information and helped.
I know. Every now and then he's a very smart guy.
Who would have known? Our parents, man. Every once in a while. What the heck? That's funny.
And, the 37 days in rehab. In rehab, you don't have a lot of control over what you eat. Yeah. They recommended that I move into a sober living facility. And while in sober living, I transitioned to a plant-based diet. Yep. And it wasn't easy. I was crying a lot at first, but I watched the TED Talk by Doug Lisle called The Pleasure Trap. Yeah. And that helped me understand what I believe is the invariable truth to all lifestyle change and recovery. Yeah. That if I want to change my life, I just have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Right. Mm-hmm. Because the pleasure trap talks about why, if we know that eating healthy is the right thing to do, why is it so hard to do it? Yeah. Yeah. And that the purpose of pleasure is to indicate to our bodies that we found something in the environment that's biologically beneficial for us. Right. And foods trigger a dopamine response, and dopamine is what gives us the feeling of pleasure. Yep. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, foods in the modern environment trigger such a dopamine response that our bodies literally are compelled to continue to eat that food because it literally believes it's the most beneficial thing you've ever done for yourself. Right, right. This food literally makes your every single gene in your body go, bravo. Yeah. Do that again. Yes. Whatever you just did, do that again. Because I guarantee you, if you keep doing that, we're going to be here for a long time.
Yeah. It's funny, but terrifying. I mean,
it's true. I mean, these food engineers know what they're doing. This isn't a coincidence. They know exactly what they're doing. Yeah. And it also helped me realize that the reason why I felt so compelled to continue to use the drugs, and I felt so compelled to continue to eat the food, wasn't because I was broken. Right. it wasn't because I had some moral shortcomings or I was weak-willed. It's because my body was doing exactly what it was supposed to do in the environment that I chose to live in.
Yeah.
If I changed the environment, then I would change my life.
Oh man, so
And I
powerful.
had to be comfortable being uncomfortable until one day I would get up and this new diet wouldn't be a chore. And then eventually I'd wake up and I'd actually love it.
Yeah.
And would I be the person who could be comfortable being uncomfortable until that day came? And that was I decided that's what I was going to do.
Amen.
It just, it comes down to that daily decision between what you want now and what you want most.
Yeah.
And I had to define whatever that was. And, you can call it your why, you can call it what you want most. And I decided that I ended up in that situation of being a drug addict and being obese because I was always focused on the things that I hated.
Yeah.
And that transitioning to a positive lifestyle change couldn't be about anything about my life that I hated, right? Okay, I was obese, I was sick, I was a drug addict, and I was dying, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that anybody who's obese, I don't think a lot of people who are obese want to be. I don't think very many people who are sick want to be sick.
Right.
I think a lot of drug addicts really want to be sober.
Yeah.
And I'm very certain that most people don't want to die.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? What was it about my life that I loved enough that I was willing to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in order to experience it more completely and be the healthiest version of myself while experiencing those things? And for me, it was, I wanted to be, not only did I want to be the son and the brother that I believed my family deserved, but I felt I deserved one moment where I could be with them and be my authentic self and not be trying to get something from them.
Yeah. Right.
Where I
It's so
just
cool once
be them.
you find your why,
Yeah.
and you make it not so much about coming from a fear-based place.
Yeah.
But
Right.
studies show that if you're coming from a love-based place,
Yeah.
like it's a lot more sustainable, whatever you're trying to achieve. And
Right.
also a lot of people I've noticed that come to us and ask us questions really just want to get back to that certain outfit they used to fit in or that certain number on the scale, and it just, studies have shown again that it's just not enough to keep people going.
Right, because they're running from something that they don't like about their life. So once that's gone, what's the point of staying with it?
Right.
Other than, for me, yeah, I could say that my problems were that I had all those conditions, the diseases and the addiction, and that I was doing this to get away from that. But then once they're gone, why stay with it? Rather than I want to create a lifestyle where I'm healthy, happy, sober, and my authentic self continually. Yeah. And in order to do that, I have to commit to a new lifestyle and stay with it. And then every time I engage in that behavior, it's reinforcing the things about my life that I love and the things about my life that I want to experience more completely. So it's a constant cycle of doing things for the sake of the things that I love in my life. And by doing them, I'm connected to those things.
Right.
And
it's a paradigm shift.
It is.
Yeah.
And within, 6 months, my diabetes, heart disease, and erectile dysfunction were completely gone.
Oh.
I was off all of those medications. Then within 10 months, I lost over 100 pounds. And within a year, I was off of every medication I was put on in rehab, including the antidepressants, the mood stabilizers, the sleeping medications, the anxiety medications, and the ADHD medication. Every medication they put me on in rehab, I was off of within a year. And it really helped me to realize, going through this, I was struggling a lot with my emotional recovery. I was going to therapy 5 days a week, and I was having a hard time making any change there. But because they wanted me to accept that I was this angry, entitled, arrogant, spoiled drug addict who thought I deserved the world for nothing. And I would come home from therapy pissed off. And I would sit there saying, I don't get what's going on here. I'm making such great changes in my physical health, but in terms of my emotional health, I can't do anything. What is happening? Well, I accepted that I didn't know how to live as a physical person. I also accepted that I didn't know any other way to do it. And Rip Esselstyn and Engine 2 said, try this. Just try it. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. We feel pretty confident that it will. Just try it and see what happens. I did. It wasn't easy, but I did it, and my life got better. What if I could go to therapy with the same outlook and say, look, I'm so sick of fighting you guys. this is the only way I know how to live. I don't know any other way to live as an emotional person. This is all I know.
Yep.
Tell me something else to do and I'll just try it. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but let me just try something different
Yes.
and we'll see what happens. And then from that day forward, my life got better.
Oh.
And I don't think I would have learned that unless I had adopted the plant-based diet. And the great thing is that even on those days when I came home from therapy pissed at the world, pissed at my dad, pissed at whatever, ready, always wanting to blame somebody else and hate something else for my situation, no matter what, at the end of the day, as long as I was eating a plant-based diet, I was healthier and happier than I was the day before.
Yeah.
Right.
That created an environment where no matter my psychological or emotional situation, I was still able to make positive change on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That allowed me to develop self-worth.
Yeah.
That's something I
worth.
really like when Rich Roll always says that the plant-based diet is, or the food that's on our plate is kind of the portal into your soul, or like it's like that initial stepping stone that once you've got that under your belt, literally, then you start to work on delving into that emotional internal work that needs to be done, that a lot of times we just cover up with junk food and drugs and everything else.
It's hard to understand it too unless you get there, because I didn't go through anything like you, Adam. But I was a meat-eating, junk food, pizza, tacos, beer guy all through college. And I used to make fun of my friend who was a vegetarian. I didn't even know what the word vegan meant. And when I heard it, I thought, wow, not for me, not ever going to happen.
Right.
As soon as I started, there was a shift in my mind. And I started caring more, number one, about myself. I started caring more about the environment. And it's like, isn't it weird that what's on your plate can be that portal?
Yeah.
So cool.
Because we used to talk a lot about, riding this, weekend roller coaster. We got to a point where we're like, okay, we're being healthy now. We'll work out really hard. We'll eat healthy during the week, but then on the weekends, we're going to go out and binge, on the personal pizzas with the tall glass of wheat beers. And sometimes even when we would decide not to drink, we would still wake up the next morning like, I feel like I have a hangover, and it was literally like a food hangover.
Yeah.
And you have this brain fog. You just feel like you're in a cloud all day.
Anxiety, depression, all of these things until Wednesday, and you feel good for a day, and then you do it all over again.
And your body body recovers midweek, and
just in time for you to like wreck it again over the weekend.
Yeah. So then. But really, when we really got into the plant-based stuff, quit partying and all of that, it's just crazy how much clarity you find from all of it. And
it's amazing what a statement it is, the foods you decide to put on your plate, right? So when I was in rehab, when I would get up and I would prepare a meal on a plate that was 100% plant-based, what that was a statement that today I was choosing to be healthier than the person I was the day before. That today I was choosing to recover. And that itself is an act of self-care and an act of self-love. And reinforces positivity both in your mind, in your spirit, in your emotional state, just by simply putting food on your plate. A really profound statement about your life for that day. And there's a huge connection between the foods we put on our plate and self-love. And they go hand in hand, because the foods that you choose to put into your body are a statement of the amount of self-love you're willing to give yourself for that day. Right?
I love that.
And at a certain point too, I think it becomes like, I feel like a lot of people feel like that's a difficult choice to make because they don't necessarily enjoy those foods, but at a certain point it becomes a choice that's easy to make because those are the foods that you end up preferring.
Right.
Like your gut flora actually changes and your body craves and prefers different foods than it used to.
That's right. Yeah. It's all about the microbiome. When you make that shift in your microbiome to where the bacteria in your gut feeds off that plant fiber, then you start to crave that plant fiber, and that's when the actual taste changes. You start to actually crave these things. Look, I'm 7th generation Texan.
Yeah.
When I checked into sober living, it was football.
Big.
Yeah. It was football season when I went into sober living. I didn't want to be eating beans and watching football.
Yeah.
I wanted to be eating burgers and barbecue and watching football. And I never thought that I would wake up craving sweet potatoes and oatmeal. But believe me, look, I've learned a few things. I mean, as of now, I've lost over 170 pounds. I've become a runner. become a health coach. A lot of amazing things have happened. But there's certain things that I've learned 100% are certain in my life. One, I know for a fact that I am not broken.
Yeah.
I know that the reason why I had heart disease, diabetes, and erectile dysfunction, the reason why I was ever over 320 pounds, the reason I was a drug addict is because that is exactly what was supposed to happen when I decided to continually eat 5,000 plus calories of fast food and take 450 milligrams of Adderall per day.
Yeah. Totally.
That is the normal body response to those decisions.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with my body whatsoever. It was operating exactly the way it was supposed to.
Right.
I'm not broken. The second thing is that I only had 2 problems in my life. 2. That's it. The first was I didn't know how to live as an emotional person, and the second was I didn't know how to live as a physical person. Once I accepted those 2 things, and then accepted that I knew no other way to do it and started listening to other people and tried something new, my life got better.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I'm a really good addict. Like, I'm a really, really talented addict. I am. When I was a drug addict, I was really good at it.
Yeah.
It's hard work. It is very hard work to be as sick and addicted and miserable as I was.
Yeah.
You have to bankrupt yourself morally. You have to bankrupt yourself financially. You have to destroy your relationship with your families. You have to destroy your body. And you have to destroy every ounce of self-love that you have for yourself. That is hard.
Yeah.
And I did it better than almost anybody.
Yeah.
I was really freaking good at it.
You
The
know
thing
what
was,
I noticed
I was
with-
very addicted to very destructive behaviors.
Yeah.
If we took that same mentality, that same addictive nature, and applied it to constructive behaviors,
Totally.
then I could change that addiction to something that we call passion.
And what
Right?
could you achieve? What could
Yeah.
what then can you achieve?
My old lifestyle, that destructive addiction, had me living in a life that was about that big.
Right.
And it existed inside of a hoarder-like apartment with boarded-up windows where I was passed out on the floor in a puddle of vomit, dying at the age of 30.
Yeah.
Whereas this new constructive, passionate lifestyle, this new addiction, I have a life that 6 years ago I never would have imagined possible.
No.
You know, working and doing things with people I never would have imagined possible. Getting to talk to people like yourselves that 6 years ago I never would have imagined doing before.
Yeah.
And it's a life that I not only love to live, but I'm excited and enthusiastic about waking up every morning to do so.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I get up at 4:30 a.m. every single morning because I can't sleep another minute
Yeah.
because I just want to eat more oatmeal.
Yeah. Awesome.
Like I am 100% a sweet
Weirdo.
potato addict.
You are so weird, Adam. You're so
I am
weird.
so weird.
Nobody gets it.
It's fine. And the thing is, like, if you think I'm any less addicted to this lifestyle than I was my previous lifestyle, you'd be fooling yourself.
Yeah.
The difference is, like I said, the last one was incredibly destructive. It was all about me, 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 me.
Yeah.
What can I take from people? What can I get from them? What can I scam away from somebody?
Yep.
This new lifestyle, while yes, the things that I do are self-love and those are self-focused things, but my actions are about what can I give to others? What can my life offer others?
Purely a life of service now. And I think about
That's
anybody
different.
who could be watching this who is an addict still, that maybe hasn't come to terms with themselves, who
Yeah.
to hear from you that they're not broken, you know,
No.
their
They're
body's
not
doing
broken.
what their body was made to do, but that there are lifestyle choices they can make to shift
Yeah.
everything in the positive direction.
It takes such a passionate person, like you said, to be so good and committed to something
Yeah.
in the wrong direction. How
Yeah.
then can these same people change their mind, do that paradigm shift, and say, wow, I could put this same amount of time, attention, and energy into something that is not only serving myself, but others?
Mhm.
Right.
That's possible. And you're proof
It
of
is.
that.
Absolutely. And there's nothing that separates me from anybody else.
Right.
So I'm a human. Every other person who's listening is a human.
Yeah.
There's nothing about me that makes me special. The only reason why I was able to get up every single day and be committed to a plant-based diet and be committed to my recovery and be committed to serving other people is because I want to.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
man.
it.
That's awesome.
And I decided that I got to a point to where the things that I love about my life became more important to me than my self-destructive behavior. It took nearly dying for me
Yeah.
hope that that's not the breaking point for everybody. It is, unfortunately, for some people.
Yeah.
But there's a point to where you have this very surreal moment of deciding, am I going to continue hating the things about my life, or am I going to do what's necessary to start focusing on the things that I love about my life? And everybody's capable of doing that. You just have to decide what is important enough in your life to want to.
Yeah.
Right.
Love that. Yeah.
So something that I guess kind of why we started Eat, Move, Rest was kind of on the premise that it's the 3 things we all do every day, but we could all be doing them better.
Yeah.
And also that, the notion that our body is our temple.
Right.
So, like, can you run us through like a typical day of how you eat, move, and rest in whatever order, however you like to do it?
Yeah, you told us your old style of living. Now tell us the happy version.
I get up at 4:30.
Yeah.
And I make a big bowl of make a big bowl of oatmeal with cinnamon, and I'll have a side of frozen mangoes. Or sometimes I just do sweet potatoes with oatmeal, which I love putting my sweet potato in my oatmeal. It's amazing. And I do an affirmation, a gratitude affirmation every morning about the things in my life that I'm grateful for. And, I do it's something that I've done since getting into recovery. To sort of put myself into a positive frame of mind. And then I become very aware of the fact that I chose this food today. I chose to continue living this lifestyle because of those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I take a moment to do that, and I eat my breakfast. I do a little bit of work, and then if I have time, I go for a run in the morning.
Yeah.
For me, running became my meditation.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about how far I run. It's not about how long I run. So I have anxiety issues that I choose not to use medication for, but I use running for.
Yeah.
To where when I'm running is the only time when I am very much in the moment, connected to every step, connected to every breath, because every step is purposeful and every breath is purposeful to keep my pace.
Yeah.
Worried about what's happening 5 minutes from now or 5 minutes before, a day from now, a day before, and so on and so forth. It's just now, step, breath.
Yep.
And then I go to work. I work for Whole Foods Market's Total Health Immersions team. I'm a diabetes coach for Mastering Diabetes, where we help people reverse insulin resistance with a low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet.
Yep.
And then at the end of the day, if I didn't run in the morning, I'll do a run then. And I take some time and I call my dad, who, my mom and my dad, I'm just incredibly close with. I mean, I have a photo in my room. On one side is a photo taken by my mom, where it shows my dad and I as we're walking into the doors at rehab. Yeah. And then the photo on the right was taken by my mom, and it's a photo of my dad and I running the race in Austin 3 years later.
Oh, wow.
And because my dad and my mom, they become, I can finally be with them and not try to take things from them.
Yeah.
And my twin brother and I, my sister and I were incredibly close. In fact, my brother in 2016 was 280 pounds. He was a type 2 diabetic. I said, Bobby, can I do you a favor? Will you please move in with me for 6 months and live my lifestyle? Yeah. I'm sure we'll take care of the diabetes. Let's just see what happens. And he said yes. Yeah. So January 4th of 2016, we met with Dr. Letterman from Forks Over Knives. Yeah. And Dr. Letterman, he asked us what we're going to be doing, what the plan was. And I told him exactly what we're doing. And he threw Bobby's diabetes medication in the trash. He said, you're not going to need these. Nice. And in 6 weeks, his fasting blood sugar was 90. Yeah. So he had completely reversed his need for any medication in 6 weeks on a plant-based diet. Awesome. He's now lost over 80 pounds, so he's under 200 pounds. Oh, wow. He's become this incredibly passionate animal rights activist. Yep. He works with Sean Monson, the director of Earthlings. They're doing their next project together. And he's got a vegan travel show called The Road Less Eaten. Yep. There's a trailer for it on YouTube.
We watched it, by the way, and we can't wait for that to come out. It's going to be awesome.
Doesn't it look great?
Yeah,
it looks amazing. But one of the greatest things, because my brother and I mean, he's literally my other half. Yeah. He came up to me recently, and he's got this very brilliant mind for philosophy and poetry. And, in one of his rare moments we had a rare sort of like very quiet moment where it was just us. We weren't talking about movies or, veganism food or whatever, anything like that. Yeah. It was just us. And he said, Adam, I got to tell you something, and I'm probably not going to get through this without crying. But there's a quote from Joseph Campbell, and he says, people are not so much looking for the meaning of life as much as they are the experience of being alive.
Yeah.
And that's what you give it back to me.
Yeah.
And
How powerful.
and I'm just so proud of him.
Yeah.
And to share this with him, somebody who I took so much from, and I treated so poorly, and I know he suffered so much for so long, watching me descend into this horrible addiction and not being able to do anything about it. To give this to him and share it with him, and share this passion has just been the best thing ever. I know I'll never do anything better in my life.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Helping my brother, like watching him find the joy in owning his health and well-being with a plant-based diet is the best thing I'll ever do in my life, hands down.
Yeah. And it's amazing how like this was all like yesterday. I mean, 2016 was not that long ago, and even your recovery journey was not that long ago. And it's just amazing, like to see, like maybe we'll insert like a before and after picture or something fun like that you can send us because it's so impressive and people need to be able to see
how fast that transformation can take place. And then it's funny because you say that's the best thing you'll ever do. Adam, I'm excited to see what you do because you've got a whole long life ahead of you and you're already killing it. And it's just awesome. It's so exciting. And anyway, go ahead, man. Go ahead. You're inspiring.
Well, I just say that probably the one thing that I know for certain that I've learned over I'll have 6 years sober this year, is that the simplest change on your fork can make the most profound change of your life.
Isn't that crazy?
Like, that's it. You know, people think it's too minimal a thing.
No.
But those little things are some of the most profound things that you do. That simple choice on your plate allowed me to stop seeing food as food and as medicine. And that conscious awakening occurred because I was being very, very selfish. I was doing this for me. I did it to save me. But in doing so, instead of breaking closed, I finally broke open. And I was able to share myself in a way that allowed me to be vulnerable to all living things. And see non-human animals as, not that I didn't see them as valuable, but my actions separated me from them. But you remove that belief and you stop engaging in that behavior for just a little bit. And you get a glimpse of the actual thing that's taking place. You get a glimpse of that compassion, and you allow yourself to open up just a little bit, and it is amazing what can happen. And it all starts with what you put on your plate.
Sometimes it takes a certain breaking. And I love how you said you broke open, you didn't break closed. And it's like when you open up like that, people are just like pulled, like almost against their will. People are like pulled towards you because they see that. You break open and this light comes out and you shed a tear. You talk about your struggles. You say, I'm human. I've been through this. And people love that. And they say, you know what? If this guy can do something like that, maybe I can too. I want to talk to him, learn from him. And it's like, dude, it's very selfish what you do, what we do when we think so hard about what we put in our mouth. But it's actually helping so many others.
So many people.
And if it takes a little bit of selfishness to get started, maybe that's okay. But eventually, you are going to begin to feel more compassionate. You're going to feel more love for yourself, and that's going to extend into your attitude and your mood and the energies you put out into the world. And it's, eventually you're going to start caring about others.
I don't think all selfish behavior is negative, right? I mean, like, you cannot be of best service to others unless you're the best version of yourself.
Totally.
And sometimes that means stepping away from everyone and focusing on what you need to do to repair the parts of your life that are keeping you from being connected to others. Then be of service to everyone else.
For a while, we kind of went through something like that. We kind of distanced ourselves from a lot of our friends when we quit going out, started eating differently. And my mom kind of looking back calls it, everybody goes through an incubation phase. Where it's you're kind of baking in the oven. You're working on your stuff. So you can.
And people, friends may say, oh, I don't know what they're doing. They just sort of like, they shut themselves out from everyone. But when you come back, And this, version of yourself that's healed and is, like I say, a more authentic version of yourself. And people see it, they welcome you back into their life.
Right. I mean, I think about
Wanted you to leave, and then they see you come back, they're like, oh, wow, what have you done? I want to hear all about it.
Yeah.
And some people are, you get the typical like anti-vegan comments and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's just, it's the intention behind every action that matters.
Yeah.
If you do things from a place of love and compassion, no matter how anybody responds to you, it was the right thing to do.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
We were on an airplane. I mean, we've been on a million airplanes, but I just remember sitting there one time and I wondered why they said you need to put your mask on before assisting your child. And I just thought, gosh, that's so weird. Isn't our child more important? But the truth is, if you don't put your mask on first, you're going to pass out and you're not going to then be able to do anything for your baby.
Exactly.
Anybody else.
Yeah, and it's like, so you have to put your mask on, and then when you become healthy and focused, you can help everyone else around you.
Yeah.
And it's like, you've got to be selfish, take care of yourself.
But it's not selfish, it's self-full.
So yeah, right. Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
And that's what you did, and now you're like out in the world. You, like I said, man, you're just like pulling people in because they're like, this guy is so inspiring, and we love it. We love it, dude.
Thank you so much.
I've got actually one.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of final thoughts.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
one thing I just thought of, I'm curious, like if you have any podcasts or books or anything like that, you can let us know that you're into that other people might enjoy too.
Yeah.
So, well, one, I'm a big, I really love philosophy and stuff like that, and mostly inspired by my brother. So I've read a lot of Joseph Campbell, who's great, Hero with a Thousand Faces and Mythos and stuff like that. Podcasts that I listen to, I still love the Rich Roll podcast.
Yeah.
Listen to it pretty regularly.
Yeah.
I listen to, there's a great podcast out there called Unlock Wellness podcast, which is kind of new, which is kind of cool. There's had some good guests. I listen to a lot of plant-based podcasts. And I like mythology and stuff like that, but like urban myths. So I don't know if you guys have listened to Lore. It's kind of cool. It's a cool show. But books, other than the philosophy, like when I got started into trying to rescue my health, I read every single plant-based health book out there.
Yeah.
Like, from the China Study to Whole to Proteinaholic, everything I could get my hands on, I read it, and so that I know I could be certain of the science. Because at the end of the day, like, I come up with my own meal plan. I don't need a meal plan. I just need to know that what I'm doing will work, and I need to know the protocol and that sort of thing. So I'm kind of a nerd like that. I really like the sciencey stuff. That's what I read a lot, like How Not to Die. But I just got Matthew Prescott's book, Food is a Solution, which is a pretty cool cookbook, and it's all about climate change and how there's a great quote that someone put in there that in order to, we can stand up to climate change when we sit down to eat. I love that. I love that. It's so true.
And people don't get, that's our next conversation. We'll do that again. That's a whole nother conversation, but I think it needs to happen.
For sure.
So keep that in mind. I love that.
Yeah.
We're going to steal from Tim Ferriss a little bit. Tim Ferriss's podcast is a great one too. And Erin brought this up.
Fantastic.
She just brought this up. She said at the end of his podcast, he always asks, if you could put one thing on a billboard, what would it be? So tell us.
So there's I guess it would be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Love that.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then in honor of my father, what's going on tonight?
Good one. I love that.
Honestly, it would be, one simple change can make the most profound change of your life.
Totally.
That would be it.
Yeah.
I love that.
So powerful, man. This has been an awesome conversation. Yeah, we've had a couple in the past. I hope we have many, many more.
For sure.
Both on and off the record. We need to meet in person.
We do. We totally need to meet in person. I would love it.
Smorgasbord somewhere.
Yeah.
thing is, like, I so need to start doing yoga. So I would love to come into town, go on a run with you guys, do some yoga, eat some plant-based meals. It would be amazing.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we'll make that happen.
And also, can you just let anybody watching know how they can connect with or contact or follow you?
Yep.
Yeah, so my Instagram is Plantbased Addict. Okay. So at Plantbased Addict, and then my Facebook page is the same. And you can get in touch with me, through Facebook or through Instagram. I made the mistake on the Ritual podcast of putting out personal contact information, and not going to do that anymore.
Well, we'll keep it with social media. We'll link it all below.
We'll put some text on the screen and all that fun stuff.
We'll shout your brother out too, because what he's doing is so inspiring and awesome. We're gonna put a link to like his trailer and some other stuff down there too.
Great. And he's, I can't really talk about the things that he's working on with Sean, other than they are doing a follow up project to Earthlings, and they're doing another one which I can't really talk about, but it's going to be incredible.
We can't wait, man. We can't wait. Well, it's been a good conversation. We need to do it again.
I would just anytime I get a chance to get face-to-face time with you guys, I would love it.
We would invite you up here. It's like 75 right now in Nebraska, and it's going to snow this weekend.
Yeah,
so like
talk about climate change.
Dude, yeah. We are at like the crux of like weird climate stuff. But
we're
anyway,
like in shorts and t-shirts today, but we can't pack away our winter stuff yet because it's snow.
We got to get it back out this weekend. So when the weather gets nice, we'll have you back up. We'll do a day at the lake, yoga, runs, and stuff like that. We'll make it happen. Awesome. All right, man. Have a good weekend. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you, guys.
We'll be in touch, man.
Okay.
See ya. Eat, move, rest your best.
All right.
Thank you so much to Adam Sud for having such an in-depth conversation with us, such a meaningful conversation. We hope that all of you really got something from it and enjoyed it.
We could go on the subject of addiction. We talked nonstop about plant-based diets, but this one was special. Aaron and I, honestly, almost everyone we know, but not just us, but almost everyone we know has struggled with addiction or has known someone who struggled with addiction, and we hope this helps you. It has helped us on our journey with our family members, and it's just so cool that we've been able to connect with these people and share that with you. So again, like Aaron said, thanks Adam. Thank you guys for watching.
Like we said, this is kind of like part of our Kitchen Confidential series that we're trying to resurrect and just get some more involvement with others in the community who have inspired and motivated us to continue along this journey of self-betterment, self-improvement, self-love, self-care.
Yes.
So leave us some love below. Let us know what questions you might have as well.
Yep.
Just stay connected with us and give this video a like if you want to see more like it, or if you just want to hear more about addiction and recovery. We've got a lot to share on a personal level with our own family members. And if you're not already, make sure you're subscribed. EatMoveRest fam, now full of love. We're here for you guys.
Yep, follow us on social media, follow Adam on social media, and let us know if you guys specifically have someone else in mind that you think we should sit down with and have a conversation with, especially if you have a connection. Let us know. There's so many inspiring people out there, and if you guys know someone,
I would love to be doing these face-to-face and really connecting.
Yep.
Until next time,
eat, move, rest, your best. Ciao.
Bye.